This is Quilted, a short story written by myself. The Oxford Dictionary defined science as the intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation and experiment. Logan found it to be so much more. Science was deliberation. Science was procedures. Most of all, science was endless, and something the logical side found himself captivated with more each day. Everything he did was for the betterment of the mindscape, and his newest experiment was no exception. He had sensed the tension building between the other sides for the past few days, though Logan was never one for emotions. It was becoming increasingly obvious that everyone was on edge, and who could blame them? The wedding had placed a strain on everyone, and the tension had barely receded. Logan had scanned through countless resources to find a solution to this. One could even say an emotional antidote. One answer left him more fascinated than the others. Standing alone, weighted blankets seemed nothing more than a frivolous adaptation to the common quilt. But Logan had learned to gaze deeper than the surface. If anything were to help the stress settle in the mind palace, this had to be it. Logan gathered his supplies, having to push aside several old experiments to reach his clipboard. Why take the extra time to clean when there was work to be done? He then slunk out of his room, rising up within a completely blank space. Logan took in the navy-colored walls. To make an experiment as reliable as possible, one was supposed to eliminate any extra variables, but the room just seemed too bare for Logan's liking. He found a smile creeping onto his face. All that time brainstorming with Roman must have taken effect on him. Logan waved his hand, and dozens of stars appeared across the walls, illuminating the room in a soft glow. 2 chairs appeared as well, settling to face each other at the center of the room. Finally, Logan conjured the weighted blanket, its coloring reflecting the night sky seen on the walls. The logical side sunk out to the kitchen, hoping to find at least one side who would be willing to participate. He was immediately met with the smell of sugar, and it didn't take long before Patton emerged, covered head to toe in flour. Patton made his way to the counter, frantically rolling out a 5th batch of cookie dough. Logan sucked in a breath. Patton only baked more than 2 batches at a time when he was upset. He clutched a small jar filled to the brim with a crimson compound, and began to spoon dollops of the sweet substance over the cookie dough. Patton was making thumbprint cookies, Logan's favorite. The cookie sheet was soon put into the oven, and the moral side rose to brush the flour from his curls before his eyes met with Logan's. Patton yelped, jumping almost 3 feet in the air. "Oh! Logan, I'm sorry. I didn't see you there." "You have no need to apologize, Patton. I was merely wondering if you would be willing to participate in a study of mine." "You want me to help with your sciencey stuff?" Patton's eyes widened. "You never want assistance with your experiments. Are you sure I wouldn't be a bother?" "Yes, well, I figured it would be a pleasant change. Your contribution would be greatly appreciated." Patton looked up at this, a smile creeping into his features. "I would love to, then. I might need a few minutes to clean up this mess first, though." Patton gestured to the layers of flour that dusted his cheeks. "I guess that you could say dropping the flour bag was a cookie mistake." Logan rolled his eyes, smirking. The pun was not a necessary addition. "So you say, but deep down, I know they bake your day." "Fair enough. I suppose I will see you in a little while, then?" "Yep, I'll be back before you dough it." Logan sighed, bringing forth a fit of giggles from the moral side, then returned to the star-covered room. Patton was there shortly after, now devoid of flour. Taking out his clipboard, Logan scribbled down a header, bringing forth the start of his research. The blanket lay soft in his hands as he lifted it, approaching Patton, who was curiously sitting in the nearby chair. "This is a weighted blanket," Logan said, placing it around Patton's shoulders. "It is known to cause several different effects depending on the person, so just tell me how you feel." Patton sat for a few moments, stroking the soft material. He happily bounced his knee up and down, pulling the fabric closer. "How do you feel, Patton?" Logan asked, his pencil readily positioned in his fingers. Patton fiddled with the corners of the blanket, taking a moment before his eyes met the logical sides. "Oh, I feel cheerful. It's so soft, and the pretty colors. Logan, this is absolutely wonderful. I miss this. I can't hold it in. There's just so much elation." Logan scribbled down Patton's reaction. "That is lovely to hear. Along with your contentment, do you feel any sense of tranquility?" "I don't think so. It's just so comforting. I almost feel like I want to go do something." "Is that so?" Logan cocked a brow. "Yeah, that's it. I'll bake some cupcakes to share with the others. Then we can all have some sweets while experiencing a sweet moment. I gotta go get that started. Thanks for letting me help you with your project, Lo." And with that, Patton had vanished from the room, reminded of those he so dearly cared for. Peculiar, Logan thought, that such a soothing mechanism could also spur those to seek their own comfort. The logical side had just finished outlining Patton's experiences when the tapping of boots sounded in the doorway. "All right, Specs. Patton has insisted on baking and decorating 2 batches of rainbow cupcakes, and it seems like you clearly have something to do with it." "I was merely running an experiment, Roman, if this is what you are inquiring about." "What kind of experiment?" "A method of emotional release, if you will. It has seemed everyone has been upset since, well, you know what." Logan paused, noticing the way Roman's eyes drifted to the floor. "And I figured it wouldn't hurt to try and solve the predicament." "Go ahead, then." "What?" "I'm going to participate in your little experiment thingy. Better start your note-taking before I change my mind." Roman sat poised in the other chair, tapping his foot to a song no one else could hear. Logan quickly retrieved the blanket and held it out to the prince, who burst into laughter. "Your solution is a blanket? I hate to break it to you, Teach, but I am much stronger than that piece of fabric." Logan rolled his eyes. "For your information, it is a weighted blanket, and you can eliminate your bravado right now. I do not wish for your masking of your true insecurity to hinder my data." Roman opened his mouth to protest, then frowned. It was no secret that the prince was quite self-conscious, though he had done a decent job of hiding it, at least until the wedding. Reluctantly, Roman hefted the blanket over his shoulders, the tension immediately draining from his body. Logan bit back the urge to say, "I told you so," and instead jotted down a few notes onto his clipboard. It was comfortably silent for a beat, until Roman spoke, so quietly Logan almost didn't catch it. "I hate to admit it, but this is nice." "I'm glad you think so." Roman abruptly stood, the blanket falling from his shoulders. "We need to get the others to try this. If not for your study, then just because. Whatever that blanket is made out of has to be pure magic, because I've never been able to feel that way. How do I say it? As if all your thoughts have dispersed, leaving you with the root of how you really feel?" "Yes!" Roman snapped his fingers. "Hold on a moment. I'll be right back." Logan nodded, though the prince had already sunk out. Not 15 seconds passed before Roman returned, a very grumpy Virgil with him. "I don't care what you say, Princey. I've already tried every stress-relieving trick in the book. This won't work." "Just try it," Roman grinned, tossing the blanket atop the anxious side, who fell to the floor under the weight. The creative side sunk out just as fast as he had arrived, leaving Virgil crankily lying on the floor. Logan couldn't help but snicker, especially with the look on Virgil's face, one that amusingly resembled that of an angry cat. "You don't get to laugh about this," Virgil mumbled from the floor, having already pulled the blanket up past his chin. "I'm telling you, this stuff doesn't work on me." "We shall see." Virgil's eyes narrowed, though Logan averted his gaze, bringing his attention to the experiment notes. He jotted down his new findings, detailing both Roman's acceptance and Virgil's gradual relaxation. A soft rumble interrupted his stream of thoughts, and Logan gazed up from his clipboard to see Virgil fast asleep under the blanket. Logan let him stay that way, figuring that the anxious side needed the rest anyway. Well, until the door burst open, followed by an uncanny screeching. Logan practically fell out of his chair, while Virgil shot up from the floor faster than humanly possible. By the time they had both processed what had happened, Remus had already taken a seat in one of the chairs and was flashing them a toothy grin. "You have 5 seconds to explain what that just was," Virgil hissed, clearly not appreciative of being awakened so soon. "Calm down, Virgie. There's no reason to get your spiderweb in a twist." Remus began picking at his teeth. "I merely needed a place to hide after I pushed one too many of Janice's buttons." "I think you would have had a better time with Janice." Virgil stepped forward, but Logan quickly intervened. "Enough, both of you. Remus, if you are going to stay, then you'll need to take part of an experiment of mine." "Ooh, what kind of experiment are we talking about? Clones, poisons, hybrids?" "That's it. I'm not going to be here when he breaks into absolute chaos." Virgil gave a mock salute, sinking out as quickly as he could. Remus waved hectically, giggling as he watched the anxious side disappear from the room. Logan pinched the bridge of his nose. This was all for the benefit of the mindscape, no matter what havoc Remus had in store. "All right, Remus. All I need you to do is wear this weighted blanket and tell me how you feel afterwards." Remus nodded fervently and tightly grasped both corners of the blanket. He tossed the weighted blanket into the air, dropping to the floor and allowing the blanket to collapse onto him with a dull flop. Logan held back the urge to roll his eyes, instead placing his pencil to the clipboard. "Now, how do you feel, Remus?" I need more blankets. How many of these do you think I'd need to match my body weight?" "Judging as the blanket is 14 pounds, you would require just about 14 blankets to match your weight." "Remus, no!" The Duke cackled, waving his hand and bringing forth 13 other blankets, all of which toppled over him. Logan sighed, though made no move to help Remus, who had disappeared completely underneath the layers of fabric. He didn't need to, as the faint giggling displayed that Remus was obviously fine for the moment. Janice's arrival, seconds later, changed those odds. The deceitful side's hair was disheveled, and noticeably missing his hat. His cloak lay twisted around his shoulders, while a thin line of sweat covered his forehead. "Where is he?" Janice hissed. Logan slowly pointed to the pile of blankets where Remus was still roaring with laughter. In one swift motion, Janice had swiped off all the blankets, abruptly cutting off Remus's giggles. "I am totally not at my last straw." Remus gulped. "Well, would you look at the time? I should be going." "Remus!" Janice grabbed for the Duke's sash, coming up just short as he sank out. The 13 weighted blankets disappeared with him, leaving only Logan's creation. Janice rubbed his temples, glancing between Logan and the rest of the room. "I don't suppose you were in the middle of something?" "Just a basic study. May I ask what happened to you?" Janice sighed heavily, flopping into the chair. "Remus decided it would be a fun idea to conjure legs for all my bowler hats. I haven't been chasing them for hours." Logan snorted, quickly covering his face as Janice shot him a pointed look. I presume you have something to say about this, Logic? No, not at all. Pardon me, I just couldn't help but find Remus's creativity amusing. It's something, that's for sure. A blessing or a curse I have not decided, though I'm leaning towards curse. Janice's gaze crept to the blanket on the floor. So, regarding that experiment of yours, would you like to participate? So quick to respond. I wouldn't have taken you to be so eager, Logan. Logan frowned. Says the side who willingly chased a hat for hours. Touché. Now give me the blanket. Logan lifted the weighted blanket from the floor, Janice happily taking it and burying himself under the fabric. The logical side cocked a brow, though Janice shushed him before he could even open his mouth. His eyes had already fluttered shut, though it was obvious that Janice was anything but asleep. Instead, he seemed to be perfectly content to sit in the silence. Logan pushed up his glasses. I take it you enjoy the blanket? You would too if half of your body was covered in scales. Janice pulled the blanket closer, his eyes becoming the only visible part of him. Logan made note of the deceitful side's reaction, completing his set of data. He stood up, stopping just before the doorway. You're not getting this back, if that was what you were thinking, Janice mumbled, and Logan couldn't help but chuckle as he pulled the door closed. Experiment status? Successful. This has been Quilted, a short story written by myself. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time for the continuing of Set Him Free. I finally have the plot straightened out, so we'll get back on track with those chapters.